She said it with a smirk, one of those crooked, entitled smirks that make you feel like the joke's on you, and you didn't even know there was a joke. Sometimes I fantasize about my ex. When we're together, Denise said, swirling the last of her Chardonnay like she was auditioning for a reality show called Who Can Humiliate Their Husband Faster? The words didn't echo in the room, they detonated. I stared at the roast chicken I had carved, steam still rising off it like it didn't know the air had changed. I could hear the soft tick of the antique wall clock above her shoulder. I bought that thing in Vienna, years ago, when I still believed vacations fixed marriages. I didn't speak. Denise leaned back, waiting for a reaction. She always wanted a reaction. That was her favorite game. Say something cruel enough to draw blood, then act surprised when you bleed on the carpet. But this time? Nothing. I didn't give her the satisfaction. No snide retort. No broken glass. No, who the hell do you think you are? Just a folded napkin, neatly placed beside my plate. I stood, slowly. Calm. Controlled. The kind of calm that made even the dog shift uncomfortably under the table. He looked at me, ears twitching, like he knew. She blinked, caught off guard by the silence. Oh, come on, Rich, don't be dramatic, she chuckled, stabbing a green bean like it had personally offended her. It's just a joke. Jesus, lighten up. Except it wasn't. Because you don't joke about still being mentally in bed with your ex while you're married to a man who rebuilt your bathroom with his own hands after your Pinterest addiction spiraled into a 6-month renovation fantasy. You don't joke about that when he sold the boat to pay off your boutique's debts. You don't joke about that when he gave up Florida winters to stay in goddamn Michigan so you could be closer to your aging Pilates instructor. You just don't. I walked to the garage. Not a word. Not a slam door. Just my hand resting for a second too long on the doorknob, the metal cool under my palm like the silence between us. Behind me, she let out a scoff. Seriously? You're gonna pout in the garage now? Grow up, Richard. But I wasn't pouting. I was remembering. The last time she mentioned that ex 2 years ago. I had just finished installing the new patio lights she picked out. She said it offhandedly, like a memory that smelled better than the dinner I'd grilled. Back then, I laughed it off. Back then, I still cared to win her back. Back then, I didn't know what was buried in her closet. Tonight wasn't the first strike. It was the last one I allowed. I stepped into the garage and hit the lights. The Camaro, my Camaro, sat there under its black cover like a sleeping lion. 69 SS, cherry red under the sheet. The one she called your second wife whenever she wanted to needle me in front of guests. The one she told her sister she'd get in the divorce, obviously. Except it wasn't obvious. I pulled the cover back, ran my hand along the polished fender, turned the key in the ignition, a slow, deliberate twist. The beast woke up like it missed me. I didn't slam the garage door. I let it roll up steady and smooth, like a theater curtain rising for the final act. And when I pulled out of that driveway without a glance in the rearview mirror, I wasn't running away. I wasn't sulking. I wasn't confused. I was choosing the moment I would remember as the beginning of the end. Because sometimes a man doesn't need to scream. He just needs to leave quietly enough to make the silence deafening. And when I saw the porch light flick on in my side mirror, and saw her silhouette in the doorway, arms crossed, and heard nothing but the sound of my V8 cutting through the dusk, I knew she finally felt it. The shift, the dread, the realization that the thing she thought would always stay had started moving. At first, she thought I was bluffing. She heard the Camaro roar to life and probably smirked into her whine like it was some melodramatic tantrum. Like I'd do a few angry laps around the block, come back in 10 minutes smelling like exhaust and pride, and apologize for making a scene. But I didn't circle the block. I didn't come back. I didn't even slow down. That engine, deep, guttural, unmistakable, was the sound of me peeling 31 years off my back like a bad sunburn. And for the first time in decades, the garage door didn't open again that night. The house got quiet after that. Not the comforting quiet of a settled home, but that eerie, suspended silence, like a theater where the actor's missed his cue and the audience doesn't know if it's part of the play or a full-blown collapse. She texted, "Really?" Then again, 2 hours later. "Are you serious right now?" Then, "You're acting insane." No reply from me. She called around midnight. Twice. I let it ring. She didn't leave a message. I imagined her sitting on the edge of the bed, arms crossed, still in that stupid silk robe with the monogram D. She used to tell her friends it stood for desire. I always thought it stood for delusion. She probably poured another glass and settled in, convinced I'd come crawling back by morning. That's what narcissists do. They don't fear abandonment. They dismiss it. Until it's real. And oh, it got real. Morning sunlight crept through the blinds like it was afraid to touch her. She woke up in my bed, still tangled in yesterday's drama. No sound from the garage. No soft hum of coffee brewing. No morning news playing in the background. Just an empty side of the bed, cooler than usual. She padded out into the hallway. The house looked untouched but felt unfamiliar. The kind of unfamiliar you get when a door's been left open too long in the winter and all the warmth has fled somewhere else. Then she saw it. On the nightstand. Her wedding ring. Not flung. Not hidden. Not theatrically placed on her pillow like in some soap opera. Just there. Cold. Deliberate. The ring she insisted be platinum because gold was too cliché. The one I had resized 3 times because she couldn't decide on her real weight. That ring had cost me more than the Camaro financially and emotionally. Now it sat alone, like an artifact. She picked it up like it might still be warm. It wasn't. She didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, she stormed into the garage. Empty. Not just of the Camaro. Of me. No spare coat. No workbench clutter. Not even my spare keys. She opened the drawers. One by one. Tools gone. Manuals gone. Even the old photo of my dad helping me rebuild the engine, it wasn't on the pegboard anymore. I'd taken everything that mattered. Left behind the noise. She called my sister. Straight to voicemail. She called our son. He didn't answer either. She called my best friend and asked if I was having a breakdown. He replied, maybe. Or maybe he just remembered who he was. That was the moment she started pacing. The kind of pacing where you touch things for no reason. Rearranging throw pillows. Checking the fridge twice. Turning on the TV and immediately muting it. She even tried calling her ex. Yeah, that ex. Didn't answer. That night, she lit a candle in the living room and sat like a woman in a war bunker, waiting for the walls to shake. Waiting for the monster to arrive. But there was no monster. Just silence. Because I wasn't coming home to scream. I wasn't coming home to argue. I wasn't coming home to be reasonable while she got performative. I wasn't coming home, period. The Camaro didn't just drive me away from her. It drove her right into the one thing she feared more than confrontation. Irrelevance. Day 1, she thought she was winning. She strutted through the house in heels, and the house, mind you, like she was on a catwalk for no one but herself and the dog, who wouldn't even look at her. She played music in the kitchen louder than usual. Beyoncé, of course. Always Beyoncé when she wanted to remind herself she was still that beat CH, as she put it. She posted a filtered selfie from the spot captioned, "Taking care of me nail polish sparkles #self-love era," and dropped a thirsty little comment on a years-old Facebook photo of her ex. The one with the Corvette and the very visible wedding ring. She typed, "Fire, fire, fire, still killing it, face-blowing kiss," like she wasn't sitting alone at the kitchen counter drinking wine from a coffee mug. She figured I'd see it. That I'd be watching from some seedy motel room, crying over her profile, regretting every breath of independence. But I wasn't watching her. I was erasing her. Day 2, she got twitchy. Still no call. No text. No, let's talk, or come home. Just digital dead air. She sent one last message before lunch. "I'm done playing games. This is childish." She meant you're childish. But the shift in tone gave her away. That afternoon, she tried to open the safe in the master closet. The old black one with the stiff handle I'd bolted to the floor myself 10 years ago. It was gone. Gone like it had never existed. She blinked like it had been abducted. Stared at the square imprint in the carpet where it used to sit like a ghost limb. She checked the home office. The little brass key that always sat in the ceramic tray by the printer? Gone. Drawer locked. She tugged at it like maybe it was just stuck. Then like maybe she could force it. No dice. She pulled out her phone and tried calling her cousin Marnie, because Marnie always told her she could do better than me. Marnie didn't pick up. Probably busy watching her third marriage dissolve in real time. So Denise grabbed her overpriced purse and stormed out to brunch with the girls. She needed an audience. A support group. At least someone to validate her victim status over mimosas and passive-aggressive sympathy. They met at that pretentious bistro she insisted was our place, even though I hated everything on the menu. She ordered with flair. Crab cake Benedict. Bottomless blood orange spritzers. Dessert. She even flirted with the waiter, 25, max, invisibly uncomfortable. And then the card declined. She laughed it off. That's weird. Tried again. Declined. The silence at the table went sharp. You know that soundless judgment women fire across a table when someone's losing status? Yeah, that. She mumbled something about fraud protection and my husband screwing with my accounts. But her voice cracked. Because she wasn't sure anymore. She pulled out her backup card, the emergency one. The one I told her not to use unless she had a literal fire under her feet. Approved. But barely. When the check came, she paid fast and left faster. Back home, she stomped into the kitchen and flung open the drawer with our shared paperwork. Except it wasn't shared anymore. The folder with our joint tax returns? Missing. The envelopes with our banking statements? Gone. Even the post-it with my old pen that she'd hidden under the spice rack was no longer there. She opened the fridge. No milk. She opened the cabinets. No coffee. She stood in the middle of the kitchen and realized, without ceremony, without a single dramatic boom, that she was standing in a house full of things that didn't belong to her anymore. Not because I took them, but because I removed the illusion that they were ever hers to begin with. She slept in the guest room that night. Alone. Not because she missed me, but because my side of the bed, cold, untouched, slightly sunken, felt like it was mocking her. And for the first time in 3 days, Denise felt it. Not guilt. Not regret. Weakness. And that's something she'd never felt in this house before. The thing about being married to a woman like Denise is, she never suspects the quiet man is dangerous. She thought my meticulous nature was just some harmless old man hobby. Like rearranging socket wrenches or alphabetizing insurance policies meant I had too much free time and too little testosterone. She'd make her little digs over wine with her girlfriends. Richard's probably got a binder for binders, or he triple-checks locks like someone's gonna steal his encyclopedias. They laughed. I smiled. And while they rolled their eyes, I moved the entire chessboard behind their backs. 3 years ago, after my second heart scare and her third designer purse in a single month, I sat down with an estate attorney named Miles. The kind of guy who didn't flinch when I used phrases like irreversible trust or contingency exclusion clauses. He wasn't cheap, but Denise had taught me. Cheap is expensive when it comes to betrayal. We drafted everything, and I mean everything. The house, paid off in full, transferred into a private family trust. Not in my name, not in our name. In my sister Marlene's. The one Denise hated. The one who had a PhD and never wore makeup. Perfect cover. The Camaro? Legally a business asset. I'd formed a shell LLC under my old aviation consulting gig and billed the restoration as brand marketing for a hypothetical podcast I never even recorded. IRS compliant, notarized, bulletproof. The lake house in Traverse City, bought under the Grandkids College Fund Trust. Denise called it morbid planning. I called it insurance. Even our joint savings quietly migrated into a staggered disbursement system. If I died, she'd get monthly stipends. If I lived and divorced her, she'd get a polite letter and a prepaid Uber to the nearest hotel. Now, in a sleek office 28 floors above downtown, I sat across from Miles and slid him the file I'd kept in my garage toolbox for 2 years. He opened it without a word. I watched his eyebrows lift. You ready to initiate everything? He asked. Trigger all clauses, I said, sipping coffee. Effective immediately. He clicked a pen. The sound echoed like a starting gun. Within hours, the house deed was flagged for occupancy review. The Camaro's title re-registered under the LLC with usage restrictions. Access to the lake house revoked. Denise's name was never on any lease or booking. Her name was removed from all surviving documents that still contained the phrase joint tenancy. All mail forwarding. Redirected. And just for sport, we scheduled a locksmith to rekey all exterior doors, Friday at 3 p.m. sharp, right when she'd usually be getting her eyebrows laminated. Miles looked at me as he slid the final document across the desk. You know, most men wait until they're half dead or divorced to do this. You're early. I smiled. I'm aerospace. We do failure analysis before launch. He chuckled, then paused. Does she know? She laughed during dinner, and said she fantasizes about her ex while we're together. He let out a low whistle. Dumb move, he muttered. No, I said, standing. Predictable move. The dumb part was thinking I hadn't been listening. The elevator ride down was quiet. Peaceful. I hadn't felt that light since the Clinton administration. When I stepped onto the sidewalk, I glanced at my phone. 5 missed calls. 3 texts. Where are you? We need to talk. Seriously, Richard, this isn't funny. The last one just said, you're being cruel. I stared at it, then locked the screen. I wasn't being cruel. I was being prepared. Something she never understood. She called me paranoid when I bought fireproof safes. She mocked my checklists. Laughed when I said prenups should be updated like antivirus software. She once told her sister, Richard plans like the world's ending. Who even thinks like that? Someone who knew the end was coming. And now, standing in the quiet hum of city traffic, I smiled. Because the bomb had already gone off. She just hadn't realized the shockwave was still traveling. She waited until late afternoon, when the sun hit that angle in the kitchen that used to make her feel domestic. Warm. Framed. The kind of light that made everything look like an Instagram ad for buttered toast and fake smiles. But today, the light hit differently. It made the dust in the air visible. And Denise felt like the dust was floating in her own lungs. She didn't like silence. She liked noise she could control. Voices she could manipulate. Arguments she could win. Richard wasn't giving her that. So she called Grant. She tapped the screen 3 times before hitting send. Almost like she was rehearsing what version of herself to be. Loving mother? Frustrated wife? Victim? He picked up on the second ring. Hey, Mom. There was no warmth. Just politeness. Grant always had that soft, measured tone. He got it from Richard. But lately, that calm had started to feel distant. Hi, sweetheart, she started, voice feathery. Your dad's been acting weird. Pause. Grant said nothing. She tried again, a hint sharper. He's avoiding me, not answering calls. Took the Camaro and just disappeared. Still nothing. Denise blinked. Grant. He finally exhaled. He's not avoiding you. That froze her. What's that supposed to mean? He's preparing. Now she really stopped. Even the dog lifted his head. Preparing for what? She asked, voice cracking on the last word. There was a long silence. Not the kind where someone is thinking. The kind where someone already decided whether or not you're worth answering. Then he said it. Quiet. Final. Like a steel trap snapping shut. I told him everything you said last Thanksgiving. Her mouth went dry. She gripped the edge of the counter like the room was shifting. What do you mean? But she knew exactly what he meant. Last Thanksgiving. Wine-soaked. Candlelight. Richard in the garage checking the breaker because someone overloaded the outlet again with her precious centerpiece warmer. And her, sitting in the living room with Grant and his girlfriend, Nora, half a bottle deep and loose-lipped. She'd laughed too loudly. Said something like, your dad used to have ambition. Now he's just comfortable. I probably should have married Rick. He's still exciting. Then she added, your dad doesn't inspire anyone. Not even me. Grant didn't laugh. Nora excused herself early. All right, fellas, quick break. We're shooting for 10K subscribers. If you're enjoying these gripping tales of betrayal, hit that subscribe button, and let's get back to the story. Later, Denise tried to brush it off with a joke. You know I'm just venting. That's what family's for, right? Apparently not. Grant, she tried, voice shrinking. He cut her off. You said he was boring. Dead weight. That you were waiting for him to slip up so you'd finally be free. She didn't remember saying it exactly like that. But she didn't deny it, either. And you think he'd just forget that, he added. I was drinking, she snapped, losing the softness. It was Thanksgiving. He didn't respond. Are you seriously taking his side? I'm not taking sides, he said. I'm remembering who taught me the meaning of respect. And who taught me how to fake it. Click. Call ended. She stared at the phone, blinking, not breathing. The room felt smaller now. The walls closer. The shadows longer. She had always believed Grant was hers. Emotionally. Strategically. She was the fun parent, the spontaneous one. Richard was just the calendar, the wallet, the lecture. But in that moment, she realized something terrifying. Grant had been watching. All those years. All those sighs. The digs. The dismissals. The behind-the-back eye rolls. He wasn't choosing sides. He was choosing truth. And truth? was suddenly very inconvenient. She sat down on the bar stool and scrolled through her texts. Tried again. Hey, can we talk? Nothing. Please. Still nothing. Just silence. And her own reflection in the black screen. Tired. Alone. And for the first time in decades, uncertain whose side of the story anyone would believe. She hadn't opened that side of the closet in months. It used to be his, meticulously organized, color-coded, shirts arranged by sleeve length, ties rolled tight, like little silk grenades. He even labeled the drawers. Who the hell labels sock drawers? Richard did. Because, as she loved to say at wine nights, my husband has an unhealthy relationship with order. It's his love language. Now it was empty, hollowed out, like a closet that had been burglarized by someone who knew exactly what to take and what message to leave behind. But today, something tugged her there. Not logic, not curiosity, something colder, older, that deep, animal instinct that something is off. She opened the mirrored door, half expecting to see nothing. But there it was. A cardboard box. No tape. No markings. Just a box. Denise crouched and pulled it out slowly like it might hiss or explode. Set it on the ottoman and peeled it open with the delicacy of someone uncovering a body. Inside, chaos, Richard's kind. Everything was too neat. Too deliberate. A photo of their wedding day on top, creased at the edges, but intact. She was beautiful then. He looked young, honest. A man in love who didn't yet understand how dangerous indifference could become. She tossed the photo aside. Below it, a manila folder with her name written in his handwriting. Not Denise. Not D. No pet name. Just Denise Carter, Archive. She flipped it open. First page, a printed screenshot. Her iMessages. From 2 years ago. A message from her to Rick, her ex. If Richard drops dead tomorrow, I wouldn't even wear black. He still thinks I'm impressed by his damn car. I fake it. Every time. He just closes his eyes and thinks it's love. Her throat tightened. She flipped to the next page. More messages. More timestamps. She gasped. What the hell? They weren't just fragments. These were transcripts. Entire conversations, painfully intact. Sent. Received. Emojis included. Even the haha reactions. Things she thought had been deleted forever in a moment of panic after that close call last year when Richard asked, "Who's Rick?" And she laughed and said, "Old friend. Chill, Sherlock." She flipped further. Post it stuck to certain pages in his tidy handwriting. Don't forget this one. She lied on the 14th. Compare with her alibi. Sent this the night of our anniversary. Her hands shook. She slammed the folder shut, heart racing. And that's when she saw it. Nestled in the corner of the box like an afterthought. A folded note. One sentence. It's all backed up. She froze. Her first thought wasn't denial. It wasn't anger. It was fear. Because she knew he had the means. The old server in the garage. His habit of saving everything just in case. The quiet, relentless way he approached life like an engineer disarming bombs. And she had mocked that. Called it compulsive. Told friends he was one unhinged spreadsheet away from building a panic room. Turns out he didn't need a panic room. He was the panic. She grabbed her phone and opened her messages. Scrolled frantically. Nothing in her history. She'd wiped it clean. She'd been smart. But he'd been smarter. Suddenly, she couldn't breathe. The closet felt like it was shrinking. The air too still, the light too yellow, like a spotlight in an interrogation room. She slammed the box shut and backed away like it might chase her. No scream. No tears. Just a new, foreign emotion spreading like ink through her chest. Helplessness. The kind she'd only ever seen in others. The kind she had, until this very moment, believed herself immune to. And somewhere, he was holding the real copy. The master file. The one she'd never touch. Because it wasn't just evidence. It was insurance. And she had just realized she was the liability. She heard the rumble before she saw him. That unmistakable low growl of the '69 Camaro, sliding down the street like a shark through deep water. It rolled into the driveway with the same slow confidence she used to mock that thing's your mistress, she'd say. Too old, too loud, and way too much attention for what it's worth. Now it was the sound of reckoning. Denise shot up from the kitchen stool, wine glass clinking against marble. She hadn't heard from him in days. Not a call. Not a single reply. Not even a goddamn typing indicator. She stood frozen as the engine cut. Door shut. Footsteps. The kind of measured, boots-on-wood steps that sound like they already know where they're going. He walked in through the side door. No announcement. No anger. Richard looked, rested. Jeans, worn jacket, beard trimmed just enough to make it look like he wasn't trying too hard. He didn't glance at her. Didn't scan the room like a man checking for threats. Just walked up to the kitchen island and set down a manila envelope. Then looked at her, finally. 3 pages. You'll understand. His voice was calm. Too calm. The way a surgeon might tell you. We removed everything we had to. She didn't move. Not at first. Part of her still believed this was the first step in a dramatic apology arc. Some Hail Mary to save their foundation. She reached for the envelope like it might still contain something salvageable. She pulled the flap, pulled out the papers, and the headline stopped her mid-breath. Asset reassignment and legal ownership confirmation. The car. The Camaro. He was officially transferring it. To himself. Through the LLC she barely remembered signing off on 2 years ago. Some boring tax shelter thing she waved off during one of his dry-as-toast financial rants. She skimmed the pages, title history, legal registration, and attached notarized statement from her husband-turned-architect of collapse. To prevent future disputes and ensure clear delineation of sole ownership. Her hands shook. You can't do this. That car. He cut her off. Not loud. Just final. You never asked whose name it was in. She blinked. You said you'd take it in the divorce. Called it your trophy. I made sure you wouldn't. Then he turned. Walked back toward the door without waiting for the meltdown. But oh, she delivered. You bastard. She screamed, voice cracking as it ricocheted off the kitchen tiles. You smug, pathetic bastard. That car was mine. You drove me around in it. He didn't stop. Didn't even flinch. She followed him to the door, paper still clutched in her hand like it was a death notice. Don't you walk away from me, Richard. I'll fight this. You think you're going to humiliate me? He paused, hand on the doorknob, then turned, just enough for the light to hit his face. No, he said softly. That was never the goal. But it's a hell of a side effect. He walked out, steps even, slipped into the driver's seat like the car had been waiting for his return. She watched from the front door, seething, gripping that envelope like it might explode if she let go. The Camaro roared to life again. It didn't peel out. It didn't screech. It glided, backing up with precision, tires kissing the edge of the curb. And then he was gone. The house was silent again. But this time, it wasn't suspenseful. It was surgical. She stood there for minutes, blinking at the empty driveway. Because that was supposed to be her prize. The symbol she told everyone she'd keep, even if the marriage didn't. I'll get the house, the car, and half his pension. He's too soft to fight me. Turns out softness was just camouflage. And the Camaro? Wasn't a trophy. It was a message. And she'd just been handed the translation. She came back from errands with 2 shopping bags and a new attitude. Hair freshly blown out. Nails redone in that same crimson shade she used to wear when she wanted to reclaim the vibe. Oversized sunglasses. Designer heels. She walked up the driveway like it was still hers, still the stage she owned. She didn't even notice the little black security camera above the garage until it blinked red. Then again at the front door. Blink. Blink. New. Subtle. Purposeful. She hesitated. Only for a second. Slipped her key into the lock like she was still queen of the house. Turned. Nothing. Frowned. Turned again. Harder. Click. No give. She stared at it, confused. Tried the key again. Pulled. Pushed. Jiggled. Still locked. That's when it started sinking in, not all at once. Just a slow, crawling awareness that the rules had shifted and no one had told her. She rang the doorbell. Silence. She knocked. First lightly, then harder. Still nothing. Denise stepped back from the porch, heart thudding louder than she cared to admit. Looked around like maybe she'd see a note. A reason. Something. That's when she saw him. Down the street. 3 houses over. Parked under the shade of an old maple tree. Richard's truck. Window down. Arm hanging out. Calm as ever. He wasn't even looking at her. Not out of guilt. Out of indifference. He was talking to someone. Maybe his sister Marlene. Judging by the posture. Laughing. Even. a soft, half-smile on his face like he was finally in on the joke. She took a step toward him. He didn't flinch, didn't glance, just kept talking. She was invisible. And then came the tow truck, right on cue. It turned onto the street like a polite executioner. Yellow lights flashing. Slow. Official. Denise watched in horror as it stopped in front of the house. Two men got out. They didn't ask questions. Didn't knock. They walked up the driveway like they'd done it 100 times. One opened the door to the silver Lexus, her car, and the other began hooking up the wheels. She dropped her bags. Hey, that's my car. The taller guy didn't even look at her. It's registered under the LLC, he said, reading from his tablet. Authorization from the owner. All paperwork's in order. I live here, she snapped. He glanced at her. Not according to the file. She looked around. The neighbors were watching now. That woman from 2 doors down, the one who used to compliment her hydrangeas, stood behind her curtain, phone in hand, eyes wide. Denise spun back to Richard. Still parked. Still calm. Still not watching. She could feel her world shrinking, like the very ground beneath her was collapsing in precise, pre-calculated squares. One of the movers picked up her grocery bags and set them politely on the porch. Didn't want these to spoil, he said. She wanted to scream. Wanted to throw something. Break something. Demand the universe acknowledge her as center again. But nothing moved. Not the door. Not the man. Not even the damn dog behind the curtain, who used to bark at strangers and now didn't even bark at her. The Lexus rolled away. The tow truck turned the corner and vanished like a magician's trick. And Denise? She was left standing in front of a locked house, holding nothing but her purse, her pride, and a dawning horror. Richard hadn't just left. He had evicted her from her own delusion. And worse, he'd done it legally, quietly, with enough grace to make it look like it was always meant to happen this way. Because in his world, order mattered, and disorder was never invited back in. They met at the old Italian place downtown, Marco's, the one with the bad lighting and the uncomfortable chairs that Denise always refused to step foot in because cheap wine equals cheap taste. Which is exactly why Richard chose it. Just him, Grant, and Emily. No spouses. No Denise. He reserved a booth in the back, away from the door, where the clatter of forks and low hum of Sinatra couldn't interrupt what needed to happen. He got there early. Always did. Sat with a black leather folder next to his water glass and a look on his face that wasn't angry or triumphant. Just finished. Emily arrived first. Early 30s, composed, always polite, but with her mother's instinct for optics. Grant came in 5 minutes later, same cautious gait he had as a kid when he broke a window and hoped Dad wouldn't notice. They didn't know why he invited them. They assumed it was about the separation. Maybe an awkward preamble to a formal divorce announcement. Maybe an apology tour. But when they sat down, Richard didn't start with pleasantries. No, how's work? No, how are the kids? He pulled out his phone and placed it on the table. Hit play. The audio wasn't long. 45 seconds, tops. But it was enough. Denise's voice, unmistakably tipsy, drifted out into the space between them. Richard? God, I settled. You think I ever wanted that? I wanted Rick. But I was pregnant, and Richard was safe. Like a damn seatbelt. You don't dream about seatbelts, do you? Then laughter. Not hers. A friend's. Muffled, embarrassed. Emily's face fell first. Her fork paused mid-cut. Grant blinked and looked away. Richard let it play to the end. Then tapped the screen to stop it. Silence. He looked up, calm. I found that 3 months ago. I didn't play it until last week. Neither child said a word. He continued. She always said I was too cautious. That I planned too much. Truth is, I was stalling. I waited because I didn't want to leave a mess. He reached for the leather folder. Opened it. Slid 2 sets of documents across the table. One's for each of you. Financial trusts. 529 plans for your kids. Medical proxies. Asset transfers. Emily finally spoke. Dad, what is this? I'm cleaning up, he said. Not dying. Just done pretending. Grant stared at the paper. She doesn't know about this? She will, Richard said. When the dust hits her lungs. They sat in silence again. Not because they didn't have questions, but because the answers were obvious. Grant leaned back in his chair, ran a hand through his hair, and said, I told you. I told you what she said at Thanksgiving. I just didn't think. She meant it, Richard finished. Emily looked down, swallowed hard. She used to say you were a coward, that you wouldn't survive 1 month without her. Richard chuckled, soft, bitter. I used to believe that too. They didn't laugh. They didn't need to. Because the shift was already happening. Not loud, not public, just a quiet rearranging of loyalty. A tectonic slide of what the family was versus what it was becoming. When the check came, Richard paid in cash. He always did. Said it kept the math honest. They hugged at the door, hesitant, but warmer than they'd been in years. And when he drove away, he didn't look back. Because that night wasn't about confrontation. It was a correction. He'd spent 3 decades letting Denise write the narrative of who he was. Now, he had the final edit. And the kids finally saw the truth between the lines. She didn't hear the knock. Because there wasn't one. No warning. No call. Just a soft thump, paper against wood, sometime after sunrise. Denise woke up in the guest room again, curled in a blanket that smelled like dust and old laundry detergent. The mattress still had the crease from Richard's overnight bag, the one he used for business trips a decade ago. Now, it just stared back at her like an accusation. She shuffled out into the hallway, eyes dry, throat sticky. A weird, wrong quiet filled the house. Not peaceful, hollow, like the sound right after the power goes out. That's when she saw it. A slip of yellow under the front door. She opened it, and there it was, taped to the glass, neat as ever, with Richard's handwriting across the top corner, like he still couldn't resist organizing even her downfall. Notice to vacate, 72 hours. Tenant status revoked by primary trustee. Occupancy rights terminated as of this morning. This is not a negotiation. This is a notice. It wasn't legalese. It was a scalpel. Her hand trembled as she peeled it down. Attached behind it, held by a paperclip, was a photo. One she hadn't seen before. Richard smiling. Not the half-smile he wore for holidays or pity, but genuinely smiling. Leaning against the Camaro. In front of her, no, his house. Grant on one side. Emily on the other. They all looked fine. Happy, even. She wasn't in it. She wasn't even behind the camera. Because she hadn't been invited. And that was the moment it clicked. Not the legal paper, not the frozen bank accounts, not the deadbolt she couldn't open. It was that photo. Because Denise had always believed she was the axis. The sun. The reason. She wasn't. She was the warning label on a life that used to be his. Now, he didn't need her to complete the picture. She clutched the edge of the doorframe as her legs wobbled. Her stomach twisted. Not in grief. Not even in anger. In realization. She'd mocked the Camaro. Said it was his fantasy. His relic. The thing he clung to like a boy who couldn't accept aging. But the Camaro wasn't the symbol of Richard's weakness. It was his escape pod. She thought he'd never leave. Thought he was too gentle. Too invested. Too damn loyal. But she never understood that loyalty has a half-life. And Richard? Richard had let it run out. He left no keys. No trace. No maybe someday message. Just paperwork. Precision. A picture she wasn't in. She walked back inside slowly, the way someone walks when they finally realize no one's following them. The walls suddenly looked different. Too white. Too clean. Like someone had taken a sponge to every memory she ever weaponized and scrubbed it out. She sat down in the same kitchen where she once laughed at him for checking the thermostat 3 times. Where she once fantasized out loud about someone who wasn't her husband. No? She couldn't remember that man's name. But she remembered every quiet moment Richard had spent watching. Waiting. Not flinching. Because he wasn't weak. He was precise. And the final turn of the key? That wasn't the lock clicking behind her. It was the moment she realized she had never known who Richard actually was. Not the quiet fixer. Not the predictable husband. Not even the betrayed man. He was the one who could rewrite the ending and erase her entirely from it.